I trust you enjoyed yesterday. I found it particularly informative, and I do love the way that we were able to go through a theme and work through a theme, and hopefully everyone got a little bit out of it. Trust you enjoyed last night. Fantastic to do something a little bit different. Again, very excited to run the inaugural Cattle Australia camp draft. I think whilst horses aren't my thing, I did learn a fair bit last night about camp drafting, which I actually quite enjoyed. So my name's Chris Parker. I'm now a Senior Advisor with Cattle Australia. My pleasure to welcome you here for the second day of the conference. Trust those members who are here will participate actively in the AGM as well after this session, and really looking forward to the rest of today and some more learnings as we go forward. I'm going to be facilitating a panel today on an issue of particular importance. Particular importance for me personally. Like a lot of you owning a property, we have a winery and cattle and sheep in a property outside of Canberra. And being a winery where we leased part of the winery, there's a lot of people coming and going. And it's something that we're never quite sure about. Often you'll come home and you'll see tracks or a gate and you'll go, I wonder who that was. Now, it's very rarely nefarious. But it is something that certainly worries us, and certainly I'm very interested in today's topic personally, because it's something that my wife Vicky and I have been contemplating for some time about how we manage the security of the winery and manage the security of the property, and obviously it's our house as well, and I know that's particularly important. And we farmed for many years in South Australia on a remote property in the mid-north of South Australia, so again, those sorts of things increasingly I think are becoming relevant. So it's fantastic. We're joined by three panel members today. John Hill, who's the co-founder, and I'm going to ask you to come up as I call your name. It's sort of welcome, come on down, except it's come on up. And John is a co-founder of Lamb Watch Australia, and they've been fantastic and been one of our supporters here at Cattle Connect, which is also great. We're also really privileged to welcome David Briese, who's a senior Queensland Police officer, quite senior Queensland Police officer, whose current role is Inspector of Rural and Stock Crime Squad. So really being able to bring us a really close practical application. And then Cass Bassingthwaighte is also going to join us. Cass is a local producer who'll be sharing some of her story around why and how she got involved and how she actually decided to use some of this technology going forward. So I think, have we got microphones? Play the video? We'll play the video first. There we go, play the video.
Lamb Watch Australia. Camera systems built for rural Australia.
Great, that's a perfect introduction. Really good, so thank you for that. I think probably what I'm interested in, and of course to you, David, I suppose what I'm really interested in is what are we actually seeing? Because I know there's a perception that we see more, and maybe it's just we're looking more, I don't really know. So quite interested. I know it's hard to summarise across the country, but generally speaking, what has rural crime and stock theft been like in the last few years?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Speaking from Queensland perspective, we're seeing a rise in reported rates, certainly over the last couple of years. Now, whether that it's hard to put your finger on whether there's actually more cattle or more offences being committed, or whether the reporting is just become better. A couple of years ago, we ran a campaign in conjunction with Crime Stoppers, where it was a media campaign around the reporting of stock theft and offences that were occurring at properties. The anecdotal evidence and the information that we're getting back from AgForce and other areas was that people weren't reporting it as much as they should have, and there was and those reasons, and there's probably 3 reasons for that, and they still exist, I think, but hopefully we as a community are getting better at reporting. And those 3 reasons, one is I think it was almost seen as a cost of doing business. Another one was that that the actual reporting was too hard. You either couldn't get onto police. We changed the way that people could report. It wasn't just ringing your local police station anymore or turning up there. There was an expectation you did it online or on the phone to PoliceLink. And then the last one was, well, will the police do anything anyway? So there was that perception out there, and we wanted to change that. And I think, the figures from 22, 23 to 23, 24, there was a rise of almost 250% in number of head reported stolen, and then another 12% over the next 12 months. So I think that campaign sort of certainly assisted, or was one of the main reasons why we saw that increase. But it's not just about cattle theft. As everyone here would know, it's also about trespassing, the theft of machinery and equipment. Copper theft is another emerging crime trend, and it goes hand in hand with drug use. Drug use is probably at its highest at the moment, and we get that from the wastewater. ACIC testing that's done a couple of times a year. Drug use is high, and therefore those smaller, I guess, offences, if you want to call them that, like copper theft, are high because they need a way to keep their drug habit going. So I'm not sure if that sort of answers your question, but yeah.
Yeah, no, it does, and I think it's like all statistics, isn't it? Whether an increase, a campaign around reporting leads an increase, does that mean there's an increase in crime or an increase in reporting? So I suppose historically, do you think there has been an underreporting of rural crime?
Without a doubt, and for those 3 reasons, and there'll be others, but those 3 reasons that I listed before, we get it. As a police and as a stock squad, we can be doing better, and we're always trying to do better. But we understand the reasons why some things aren't reported. We'd like to change that attitude and change the way and make it easier for it to be reported, so that because it's not just about us acting on the offences that have occurred; it's about preventing others, and the way that we prevent others is by catching the baddies, so to speak, and making sure that people are aware that if they do that, if they commit offences, it'll be reported and we'll be all over them.
Yeah, it just reminds me of an experience of ours many years ago, which we didn't report actually, but it was about the most brazen piece of stock theft I've ever seen in my life, where we were shearing, and one of the shearers on the weekend decided to go up and help himself, and actually killed it and in our shed and took it home. Now, we didn't report that, we dealt with that in a different way, which I'll go into at a later time, maybe out the side over a cup of coffee, but it was just the most amazing thing I'd ever think of in my life. Someone brazen enough to walk in, take a sheep out of the holding paddock, take it into your own shed, kill it, and then take it home. Anyway, that was where it goes and where it is. Look, John, I might just come to you, because I think that we have this. We're often quite comfortable, for people who've lived in the city, of having a level of security around it. And having just come back from South Africa, we stayed in a place that had 4 levels of security around it, which I just found quite claustrophobic. But anyway, we did press the wrong button and had the armed response unit turn up within the 3 minutes they said they'd turn up in. So that was encouraging. Not the fact they were armed, the fact they turned up. But look, I think what I'm interested in is how is it different protecting a house or a shopping centre in a town versus a 20,000 acre cattle property?
Yeah, definitely. That's a question we get asked a lot, because obviously when it comes to security in town, in a shopping centre, in the city, it just seems to be you've got free choice. You've got so many options. There's it's been going on for so long. There's cameras on every shopping centre, on the entry and exit to every part of it. You just got to walk around Brisbane and you can be spotted from every different angle. Because it is very easy to put cameras through a place like that when you've got connectivity, you've got access to the technology, and if something fails, then there's someone there within a couple of hours to fix it. Whereas when you go out into a 20,000 acre cattle station, which is 14 hours from the nearest city or something like that, then you've got to have equipment that's going to last a lot longer, and you've got to have technicians that know how to work in that sort of environment. And you've got to have equipment that is designed to actually see what you want to be alerted about. You don't just want to see a Prius driving into a car park. You want to see a road train pulling in that's about to steal 150 head. So there's cameras that are designed for different things. So it's about having the right tool for the right job. We often hear people wanting a camera for a little house in town, and if they put a little Bunnings sort of system on there, then that's fine. If it fails in 6 months, they can replace it. Whereas if you're on a big station up in the Gulf, well, that Bunnings isn't down the road, so you can't just replace it really easily. So it's about making sure that you put equipment on there that's going to last and actually survive. We had a story once of someone that decided to go for the cheap option, and then they went out to check the camera again, and the thing had actually melted in the sun. Because, I mean, it gets pretty hot out there, and this was in the Territory. So, like, you can imagine that, yeah, it melts in the sun, the cockatoos open it up. So having equipment that is actually built for the environment is the main thing.
So just to pursue that topic a little bit more, if, I suppose if it was me, I'd be sitting there going, well, that's all well and good, but what do you do? I mean, we've got technology changing all the time. So if you put something on, does it mean in a year's time it's obsolete? But also, how do you manage the issues around remoteness, around phone internet reception, around even power? I mean, I know we've got solar and those sorts of things, but how do you manage those technological challenges in the sort of systems you're looking to install?
Yeah, so it's about knowing the environment where they're going. So from a power point of view, like you said, having solar power is good, and we've got that option there, but it's got to be enough solar power that the thing can actually run constantly all the time, not just turn on when it senses a bit of movement and then hope that you've got the activity of someone driving past. It needs to be over-spec'd enough so that when you get the 3 days of overcast weather or a bit of fog around, the thing is still going and still working. Connectivity-wise, when we were lucky that old Elon decided to invest in Starlink, so we've got the option to put Starlink everywhere, thanks to him. Hopefully he doesn't decide to turn it off on us one day. But so we've got connectivity isn't an issue in the outback anymore, thanks to Starlink. But then we've also got other options where we can take a connection from the house internet or at the homestead and shoot that 30 k's away and connect a camera up. So we're not relying on anyone, it's just connected up. So yeah, there's a few options there of what we can do. But the big thing is, and I get sick of hearing it, someone say, oh, my property's too remote to protect, it's too big, it wouldn't work out here. Like, well, we just did 2.5 million acres in the Pilbara where we connected every camera together, so it's a doable thing.
Thanks for that, John. Look, Cass, I might just come to you because I think after a little bit of scene setting from David and then some talk about the technology a little bit more. So do you want to just tell us about your operation and maybe elaborate a little bit about what was going on that made you guys make the decision for your business about employing some of this technology?
Yep. So we live about an hour northeast of here, over near Jandowie, so not terribly far from here, and we're not terribly remote. We've got about 2,000 breeders across 40,000 odd acres, and rural crime because we're not terribly far from the southeast hub, rural crime's always been a concern, but and I think undoubtedly we have had instances of rural crime, but have never reported them because we didn't have the evidence, I think, didn't feel like we would have the evidence for the police to do anything about it. But we had a large energy project commence on our land, which meant there were hundreds of vehicles coming and going every day, and we had a lot of issues with biosecurity and farm management. So that's why we initially reached out to to John and to Landwatch so that we could, together with the energy proponent, try and get some management on the contractors, but from a biosecurity perspective, but also from just a gate management, provide evidence, I think, for what any of the breaches that we believed were happening. We could take that footage, and the energy company could do something with it to hold their contractors accountable.
And I'm not familiar with the Queensland legislation, so just to the panel in general, from a biosecurity perspective, which is something we hold very close on our property, but also something that I used to do in a different life, are there laws in Queensland about people having to abide by the biosecurity restrictions you put on your own property? I know in New South Wales where we are, there are, and I think I'm a huge supporter of those sorts of pieces of legislation.
Absolutely, there are laws in place for that, but just by the sheer number of people that were coming and going during the early construction, we were unable to communicate those ourselves to those hundreds of people coming on. So we relied on the company, and they had done a great job and they'd tried really hard, but they just have a lot of people. There's a lot of people involved in energy projects in the construction phase, and often they're working across a number of properties, and everybody has their own biosecurity management plan with different conditions. So we have high biosecurity restrictions or conditions on our land, and we just needed, and yes, while there is legislation to ensure that people comply with them, we needed, I suppose, evidence to go to the companies and the contractors when that wasn't happening.
So I'll come to David in a minute again, but your experience, tell us about that reporting process that you experienced, or you have experienced as a user of your services, David, if you like, and how was that experience? How did you do it? You know, did you use footage? How did you go about that?
Yeah, we did use the footage. The energy company was fantastic and were trying to do the right thing, but they needed physical evidence because they also can't be everywhere. They needed physical evidence of breaches. So it was as simple as downloading the clip. Or if we, for example, found a gate open, a simple example, found a gate open, we could rewind the footage, go to our office, rewind the footage, take the clip, and then take that to the company so that they can then pursue the contractor for it.
Great, thanks.
Yeah,
so I've got one more, and then I'm just going to come to the room. David, how often do you have footage of a crime, and does it help solve it? And then I suppose the second part to that is around, if somebody's going, whose responsibility, how much responsibility rests on the landowner to do something about knowing fuel's being done? I mean, do you just go, well, I'm not going to put any money into this, this is a police problem, they need to come and fix it? What level of personal responsibility, in your view, is there in that side as well? So sorry, it's a double banger for you.
Go the first one again.
So the first one is, how often do you have footage of a crime, and does it actually help in solving it?
Yeah, look, I don't have the statistics for how often, but the part B of that is we rely heavily on any sort of evidence. Cass sort of hit on it before that, offences can be reported. We'll always take them seriously, and we will investigate to a degree, but we can't be everywhere, as you said. And especially in those, areas in Western and Northern Queensland, where there's the properties are massive. So we can't be everywhere, and anything that helps us, and certainly cameras, that gives us the actual evidence. So how important are they? Vary. Leading into your second part, the second question, look, as landowners, same as, I've got a house in Toowoomba. I probably don't have, the amount of security that other people do.
There's probably a reason for that, mate.
but but if if I get broken into, though, I'm reporting it because while it's up to me to to make sure my doors are locked and windows are locked, etc. If someone breaks in, then or if someone takes cattle or trespasses or whatever, it's your responsibility to make sure gates are locked, and if you can afford and furnish out cameras and whatever, then that's great, and we certainly encourage that from both the ability to catch offenders, but also preventative measures. But we certainly don't go, oh well, they didn't have that, so we're not investigating it, and we would never not encourage someone to report it, just to report the theft just because they didn't, because it gives us a leg up. Even if there is no evidence of one and we can't find it, it could happen at the property, down the road, and we catch them there or whatever, and we can link them back. So, we don't prioritise based on, what you're doing for your own security.
It's interesting. We've got a number of police in our family, and I remember talking to young Sam, well, he's not that young, but Sam about this, and he was saying that trend is a really important thing. So that reporting, even though it might not come to anything for that incident, adds a pattern which then actually mounts up and allows you then to be able to follow that through to be able to, and ultimately a conviction on potentially another thing. So it's just a really good example of making sure we do report, even though you may not get a result for your bit, it actually does add. And I have no reason to disbelieve Sam or disbelieve you that's the way it goes. So we might just throw it open to the floor. If there are any, there's thanks, a microphone there. Great. Oh, hi, Bryce.
Thanks, Chris. Bryce Cam, Cattle Australia Director. Probably a question to David, and just a statement first. Probably a big thanks to you and your wider team in this part of the world, particularly from the feedlotting industry, when we saw some of the incursions around animal activism. The cooperation between Queensland police and industry was just like top level, and a big thank you from our
Bryce.
industry on that. I guess then a question, and probably just how many stock squad officers are there across Queensland, and I guess in constrained budgets and all of that, and I'm not sure whether you can say publicly, but I guess how does our industry support your team to get the resources from government that you need to do your job?
I'll start by saying, I'm happy to say it publicly, there's not enough. We've got, off the top of my head, I've sort of gone blank. As far as our numbers go, 32 in all. There you go, Jim's just helping me. But that's spread from Mareeba, right out down to Toowoomba and out to Charleville. So there's 10 different units. So if you divide that, that's only 2 or 3 per unit. So they do. I'll sit here and say they do an unbelievable job with what they've got. We're well resourced in terms of equipment and travel and things like that, where they can go. But in terms of numbers, there's not enough. But that's the same right across. That's not just stock and rural, or rural and stock detectives. That's all police across the state. We need more, and every area is fighting for more. So, the government and the upper echelon of the police have to prioritise and see what they can do. What can you do to help us? I think industry, the partnership between industry and the detectives in the rural and stock squad is unbelievable. I've only worked in this area for just coming up to nearly 3 years, but I've been a detective for about 25 years. So worked in a lot of different areas, and the relationships that I see and how they're built from both sides, from industry and the police, is the best that I've seen. The way that we work together, the reporting rates could could be better, and they're getting better, to allow us to jump on things quicker and prevent, and to work with you. But I just keep doing what we're doing. Keep those relationships open, and tap into our detectives and talk to them when things are happening, so that we know and we can be across it, and we can help you to help us.
Down the front here, Eva. Thank you.
Thank you. Cassandra, we've been annoyed by coal companies for a lot of years, and it came to a head in '94, and we impounded a drill rig on the place. And the authorities came in and we gave Shell Coal the biggest kick in the guts they've ever had, I think. They wrote out 2 foolscap sheets of rules for just drilling on South End. And now if they come, or if any coal fellas come exploring, I just say, well, maybe we should bring the authorities in to sort it out for you. But that's one thing I found is doing that really put your head on the line and be prepared to stand up to them, and I don't expect that. The other thing is that I've found from doing that exercise that all those big companies employ contractors. And big companies are a bit hard to take on, but little contractors are a little like we are, and they don't like going to court, and they don't like having trouble made. And I think we've got to a stage now where if a coal company wanted to employ a drilling contractor on South End, they'd most likely say, if we're drilling on South End, we're not going there because of what we did. But the other thing, from as far as trespass is concerned, I've decided now from a few things we didn't think added up, if we find a trespasser on the place, we get their name, we take photographs, and then we say, which way you're going, Theodore to Rome, we live in between those 2 towns. When you leave here, you better go and report to that police station, because as soon as you leave here, I'm going to ring up the police and say you're coming. So even if they don't call in, they're going to have a police record. And if they're innocent, they're going to call in the police and see if they can get themselves cleared. And I think that we've got to do that sort of thing. And so the question to you, David, is if I do that, where are you going to take it to?
Yeah, so if you, whether they turn up or I guess if they turn up the station, we'll be surprised, especially if they've been up to no good. And if they haven't, like you say, we'd have a talk to them, find out why they were there, and then probably get back in contact with you to find out what you want to do. But in terms of the ones that don't turn up, then that becomes an investigation. And can I just say, because of our limited numbers, it doesn't always stick with us. Like, it won't always come to us for investigation. It could be the local police, like your Theodore police or whatever, that had run that out. And something that we're trying to get better at, but certainly I don't think that we're anywhere near where we want to be, is closing the loop, what we call closing the loop, and that's getting back to you to let you know what we've done. And I would say, for most people sitting here, you're probably going, well, that's never happened to me. We're trying, like I say, we're trying to get better, and we realise that that's really important to you as a victim, and we say like a victim of crime, to get back to you and let you know what the outcome is. But we know it doesn't always happen.
I think what the question also raises for me is that and Cass, I'd just be interested in a comment from you. What is that balance between education, if you like, which you've obviously engaged in with your contractors, or the contractors coming onto your property, and having that hard evidence like security footage? What's the balance? How important is each for your business? Because it's very similar. You've done a similar thing where you have a set of expectations around what people should be doing drilling.
Yeah. really sympathise with you because I think the energy laws in Queensland are really difficult for graziers or farmers that don't welcome energy on their land. But we've got a wind proponent on our land, and that is a voluntary arrangement. So we've entered into it voluntarily. And I would say that they are trying to do the right thing. The proponents are trying to do the right thing, but I think that they have not always done a great job of communicating the requirements, and then the requirements, of coming onto our land. And then I think without physical evidence, it has been difficult for them to. A lot of these breaches cost us, and we've sought recovery for breaches. So having physical evidence has made that quite simple. Yeah.
Have we got a question down there?
Question for David. James Fowles from Wiley Creek. David, cross-border. So southeast Queensland, we're 50 k's south of Warwick. In the New South Wales region, a lot of travellers with the Queensland number plate on, and we get in our region visitors. So how's that working out? I know that poor Ian's passed recently. He was a great bloke, very helpful for us. But how are you blokes going with the New South Wales counterparts?
Really good. I talked about when Bryce raised his question before about the relationships that we have. And again, I've worked at St George as a detective out there, and we had okay relationships with Mungandai and our cross-border there, but nowhere near as good as what Jim's group, Jim Lacey's just sitting down the front here. He's the Detective Senior Sergeant who looks after all the, from basically under Rockhampton down. The relationship that they have with our New South Wales counterparts, it's what I would call first rate. It's amazing. Cam Whiteside is my counterpart over there, and we're actually going down next week to, we go down for their conference, and likewise they come up for ours, where we just share information and network. And what that does is day to day, when we're doing jobs like that, we're working in together. I won't give the ins and outs, but we're working on a fairly large job from down that way at the moment, and we're hoping to bring that to a resolution soon. And we couldn't do it without the assistance of New South Wales. So the relationship there and the information sharing. There's legislation around information sharing and what we can and can't, but we sort of have a general rule that if it's in our best interest and in their best interest, then we do it anyway, whether the legislation is there or not.
Great, thanks, David. And just acknowledging Jim's presence as well. Thank you for coming along. I just noticed your shirts. I should have noticed them before. I'm wondering whether they're especially for here because they sort of look like a pastoral company shirt with just QP written on it. So anyway, they're great, and thank you, Jim, for coming along as well. David, I think you have a question.
Thanks, Chris. David, Foot Cattle Australia. John, firstly, thank you very much for supporting Cattle Connect. We've become a very, very soft, self-centred society. How are we with the privacy laws? Have you been challenged, or are we likely to be challenged, having footage at our will against others?
Yeah, good question, David. Thanks. And we get it a lot. The main thing that we see is producers raising the question about their employees or contractors being worried that I've got footage now at my entry. I know when someone's coming on. I've got footage in my yards or in my sheds. And the answer is really simple, is if someone complains about there being a camera in their workplace, they're crooked. There's no other reason to complain about it. If you're worried about being watched, it's because you're doing something wrong. So my advice is flick them and get someone else. But obviously, employment through the bush is pretty difficult, so keep an extra eye on them. Unfortunately, we hear too many stories of managers or employees trying to switch off the cameras or do something like that to try and get around it. And they're not too bright, so they don't realise that you switch off the camera, it still keeps working, just records to itself for a while. So you've got footage of them. And unfortunately, I hear stories of people being caught doing the wrong thing, and because of the employment issues going on, they're still maintained as employees. They're just given warnings, even though they've stolen 500 litres of fuel or something like that, which is crazy. Must be a pretty good employee. But nevertheless, if someone's worried about privacy, obviously we don't put cameras in dorm rooms or anything like that. Like, there's a certain degree, but we'll definitely put cameras facing the hallways in the dorms, because we've got to protect people as well, especially on some of the big outback stations where they've got people coming from far and wide. But yeah, short answer is if they're worried about it, there's only one reason to be worried about a camera.
Thank you. Any other questions from the floor? So, John, I've got one for you. Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Rowan Clark. Just a quick question. You go back 20 years ago, 30 years ago, rural crime existed, but it wasn't like it is now. We didn't have to have cameras. We didn't have to put in the security systems. It's all coming back to us. Why isn't it being put onto the perpetrators? Like, the penalties aren't high enough. There's not a deterrent there. That's one of the issues. We shouldn't have to be bearing all the costs ourselves. And it's not just rural crime, it's across the board. It's everywhere, but it all comes back, we're the ones that have the property, but yes, we do have a duty of care to protect it to a point, but the point's getting raised higher and higher because there's no deterrent. At the end of the day, there's no deterrent. People get caught, and I know the police are tearing their hair out in northern New South Wales. They're taking people that they catch to other jurisdictions to try and get them off the streets because the courts are not locking them up, they're not penalising them enough, they're giving a slap on the wrist and letting them out again. I mean, to me, that seems to be one of the easiest solutions, is make it so they don't want to do it, because if they get caught, they're going to, there is going to be a severe penalty for it, rather than just saying to any property owner, it's your duty to protect your property. And if it's not protected enough, you need to do more.
Yeah, it's a good point. And when you talk about pulling your hair out, like I said, I've been a detective for over 25 years. And you can see...
the result.
Yeah, you can see the results, because I hear you. And I agree with you, not just as a copper, but also, as someone who lives, works in the community. But unfortunately, you're probably talking to the wrong people up here about, but it's a valid point. But I think all three of us would agree with you that, laws could be more of a deterrent. Put it that way.
Yeah, if I just add on to that, I find across the country your sentiment is shared everywhere. And I think it's a much bigger issue. At the end of the day, you shouldn't need to put cameras on your property like you didn't have to 20 years ago. But at the same time, people in town and in the city never leave their house with it unlocked, with the keys in the car, with sometimes, $10 million worth of gear just sitting there open. So whilst, yes, you shouldn't have to lock up the place, at the same time, well, you probably should lock the place a little bit, because you've got way more gear worth stealing than anyone in town ever has. They might lose their skateboard, their toaster and their TV, whereas out on a property, the producers, you've got a lot more gear worth stealing. So unfortunately, most of the houses don't have locks on them, so you actually can't lock the door. But yeah, I think it goes both ways. We have to do our bit to lock our properties up a little bit more to protect them, like anyone would with any castle. You've got to protect it, fortify it a little bit. But then the more reporting that we do, the bigger the issue that the government and the legal department is aware of, and the more they can do about it.
Just a quick question for you, John. I just wanted to have any insurance companies, I suppose, has there been any benefit to producers in the likes of getting insurance or insurance discounts on premiums by implementing this technology?
You'd think so, wouldn't you?
You'd hope so.
I mean...
We've got a discount.
Really? Yeah. I'll hand it over to Cass.
Jogsy, we have a discount from our insurance. It's not massive, but there is a discount in recognition of the security that Landwatch have got up. Yeah, we've had theft. We had a vehicle come in and maybe 12 months ago, I think, to steal some copper wire and made a bit, took a few things and made a bit of a mess while they were there, but didn't have their number plates on, but just because we could see some identifying features on the vehicle, we provided the footage to the police and they were able to prosecute. And shortly after, our premium, I don't know if it was directly connected. Sorry, it is directly connected. It's noted on our policy. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, perfect, which I think is, so it should be. But the biggest issue we find when we're talking with insurers is that they need to be educated as well to tell the difference between a $30 Temu purchase or a $100 Bunnings camera versus a proper security camera that's going to get the right footage and actually deter and prevent and protect the property. So it needs a lot more education of the insurers. But I would encourage everyone, if you've made a decent investment into protecting yourself, that should be reflected in your insurance policy, because you are now less likely to be targeted, less likely to be hit, and if something happens, you're more likely to get the gear back. So that should be reflected in insurance.
I think that's, I've got a final one I'm going to ask the panel to have the final words on. So please, each of you feel to reflect on this question. What, in your view, is going to have the greatest impact on rural crime? Is it improved reporting, better security measures, or is it something else? And I'd just welcome each of your reflections on that. So maybe, John, I'll start with you.
I think the thing that's going to have the biggest impact on rural crime is it's going to be education around the topic and an understanding that there is an issue with it. Nobody's immune. If you're really, really remote and it takes you an hour to get there and 90% of people can't find you because you're so isolated, then you're far less likely to be targeted. But if you're fronting a highway and you can see your house and sheds from the road, you're a sitting duck. So there's levels of that. But at the end of the day, we want the police to do a great job and we want to give them every resource to do that. So I think it's up to us to protect our own properties just that little bit. But I think going home straight away, the big thing for me is making your place look a little bit more difficult to hit than the guy next door. The thing I get all the time is someone will say, if I put a camera at my front gate, everyone will know that I've got stuff worth stealing. And I just laugh and say, yeah, because you do. Like, you drive up and down any of these roads around here or throughout Australia in the outback, and you see a front gate or a front grid. Behind that gate and grid is a quad bike and a motorbike and a buggy, a bunch of rifles, and a whole lot of fuel and some tractors and gear. All good stuff worth stealing, all stuff that's really easy to sell because most of it's untraced. So you've got gear worth stealing, no more than the guy next door. Maybe yours is better maintained, I don't know. But you've got stuff worth taking, so it's up to you to protect it a little bit.
David?
Just to sort of back up what John's saying, really. I just built a shed just in my backyard, and I put a lock on it, and the lock's about that big. And my 13-year-old son laughed and said, "That's not going to keep anyone out." But and it won't if someone really wants to get in there. But if they go to my place and even see that little lock on the shed, and then they go next door and there's no lock, they're going to go into that one. So prevention around, with things like cameras, for example, is always going to be a deterrent, and it's always going to help with the prevention, but also with us being able to catch the offenders and stop them from committing more offences. So, increased report, everything that you talked about before, Chris, increased reporting, talking to your neighbours, your security, added security is all going to help. I will just also add, historically, and I get it because I like to see a face when I'm talking to someone, and if I was reporting a crime, in my mind, I want to talk to someone about it, know that they're listening. But can I just say that the online portal that we have developed a long time ago, but improved over the last couple of years, it's quite easy to use. You do have to turn on your computer and get on the laptop and do all those sort of things. But what it does do is it reports quicker and it comes to us quicker. Because if you're talking, and I know all the stock squad guys, especially the OICs, provide their mobile numbers so they can be contacted, but they could be a million miles out on a job. They take down the details. It could be days before they're back and actually able to get that on the system and do something about it. But if it's reported online or through Police Link, and I'm not encouraging you to go through Police Link because that anyone who's done it, it can be quite annoying. But if you can go online and do it, it's reported quicker, it goes to the local police quicker, it goes to our investigators that are on the ground quicker, and obviously we can get onto it quicker.
Great, thank you. And Cass, the final word.
The three things that we've implemented to help encourage farm security would be the investment in Landwatch security system. We have a close relationship with our neighbours, and I think that really helps us. Anytime anyone sees anything, we keep an eye on each other's farms, anytime we notice a strange vehicle. Holding a close relationship with our immediate neighbours, and then also with our wider stakeholders. So we've also got a really close relationship with our local police and any other so the energy stakeholders in town. So those three things. I think the surveillance is great for a deterrent and having physical evidence when something goes wrong, and then just having a close-knit community or intentionally building a strong relationship with our neighbours, and then also with the wider stakeholders. Yeah.
Fantastic, thanks so much. And for those of you who are more visual, I'm going to ask John to introduce a little video to finish the session.
This video is just some fun that we had when we were out on a station at Blackall. We had to film some videos demonstrating what we do. We don't take ourselves too seriously, but hopefully it's fun.
Thank you, and would you join me please in thanking the panel? Thanks very much.